This is Season 5 of Flute Unscripted. Hi, I'm your host, Caity Massoud, and I sit down with a new artist every week and share their stories with you. This podcast is brought to you by Flute Center of New York, the marketplace for flutes. Join us, subscribe, rate, and review us. Use this podcast promo code LISTEN for some special perks. Get $50 off any flute or accessory purchase of $4.99 or more, and 10% off any sheet music order, including free shipping on all orders over $50. Once again, that's code LISTEN. When she won the audition for Second Flute in the New York Philharmonic in 2012, Yoobin Son became the first ever Korean to join the woodwind section. Getting to know more about Yoobin and learning about her start on the flute, it ultimately didn't seem so surprising that this highly motivated, dedicated, and persistent flutist would someday become a member of the New York Phil. Yoobin took a leap of faith and followed her dream to play in a top U.S. orchestra when she moved from Korea to Florida at a young age. She lived with extended family, attended public middle school, and then set her sights on the East Coast, where she attended Juilliard Pre-College, Curtis, Yale, and Manhattan School of Music. Leading up to her big New York Phil win, Yoobin had found audition success, serving as principal flute of the Mostly Mozart Festival Orchestra and New Haven Symphony Orchestra. Yoobin, thanks for coming on to our podcast today. It's a pleasure having you.
Oh, my pleasure being here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. You are a native of Seoul, Korea, the first Korean to join the woodwind section in the New York Phil when you won that position with them. I know your community back home is really, really proud of you, and it's a kind of a big deal. Was that something that ever registered with you when you were auditioning or when you were in the finals or even after it happened? Or was it something kind of after the fact that hit you? And then is there pressure to live up to everyone's expectations of you?
Well, yeah, I didn't think about the fact that I'm the first Korean to join before the audition, of course.
Yeah.
And I think after I joined, this newspaper from Korea called me and asked for an interview, and I was like, how did you even know about this? And that's when I started to feel, and of course after the article went out, I got calls from all the orchestras in Korea to asked me to play concertos with them. So actually, first 2 years, it was kind of crazy. Some days, I would have a week off, but then I had a concert on Tuesday, and I would fly to Korea with 1 a.m. flight next day, and play a concerto with them the next day, and then come back. So first 2 years was kind of crazy. So that's when I felt wow, they are proud of me, and I felt honored that they do think highly of this accomplishment. And yes, there is a positive pressure to live up to the expectation, but not just because I'm the only Korean in the woodwind section, but just in general. I think when I show up to a rehearsal or concert, just everyone in the orchestra, they're at the top of their level. And yes, of course, then I want to contribute everything I have as well. So it's a positive pressure.
What do you think you contribute individually? What do you think makes you a really perfect match with the Phil?
Well, every orchestra is a little bit different from each other, and I think our forte is really playing out, basically. And it also depends on what kind of hall you have. That's what cultivates the orchestra sound ultimately. And we don't have the best acoustics in our hall, so we really have to kind of try harder to make the best sound and projecting sound possible. And in that way, I think I can contribute. Yeah.
Are you guys getting a new hall soon?
Well, they're doing a renovation.
Yeah,
from I think summer of 2022 or something like that. So it's not gonna be a whole new makeover, but it'll be
hopefully improved acoustics at least.
It'll be an improvement.
I thought it was really funny when I was reading more about you that you said that you actually were introduced to the flute through your mom because she started.
Oh, yeah.
And then she thought it would be good to like keep her fit because of the breathing
Yes.
exercises, which is really funny.
Yeah.
And then
I'm
it
not
didn't
sure
work
if
out.
it's scientifically proven, but yeah.
And when it didn't work out for her, she kind of lost interest and you picked it up.
Yeah. Actually, she got dizzy.
She got dizzy from all the
After,
breathing.
like, 1 hour. And she was like, oh, I don't think I can do this. Yeah.
And you took over.
Yes.
So then you took over and you were just very dedicated and passionate from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think that your dedication came from so early on?
It was really fun to just play. Even I remember like when we played recorders at school, or this like Korean traditional recorders at school, I remember really liking it. And when like other students couldn't make sound of this like Korean traditional flute, teacher would say, "Oh, just bring it to Yoobin. She'll make it work." So I think I liked the like how we make the sound with air already, and then flute was, I mean, yeah, it just kept my attention for much longer. I was studying piano before.
Oh, okay.
And I remember not really liking it.
Yeah.
I didn't really want to play the piano so much.
Yeah.
But then when I picked up the flute, I immediately wanted to play more and more. So yeah, I also could tell my mom, oh, I will play the flute instead of the piano.
There you
So,
go.
Yeah,
You get
that
out of
was
your
another
piano.
good
I can
excuse.
kind of relate. I started on piano too, and it's very different. It was really
think
hard for
so.
me, and I think the flute was.
All these, I think, technical studies that you have to do, which is important,
Yeah.
but kind of, yeah. But
Yeah.
for flute, somehow, it was a lot more fun. Yeah.
Right, you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that your grandfather had any influence on you too? He was a musician.
Yeah.
He had a steady career, and then kind of gave it up to pursue composing. And
Yeah.
and you lived with him for a little while when you were younger, right?
Yes. Yeah, I lived with him until I was 10 years old or so. So, yeah, he was a banker before, and then he suddenly
Very
gave
different.
up, yes, his career, and then started to be a singer-songwriter, and then he, well, thankfully succeeded. So he was very popular in the 50s and 60s,
Yeah.
and I think even this like French singer brought his song to France and sang it in
Oh, wow.
French. So yeah, very successful. And I remember when we were living together, he had his own studio and always like singing with his guitar and composing. And I mean, I could go in and listen to him and admire how he's enjoying what he does.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure that definitely had an influence on me.
But where did all of like the dedication for 6 hours of practicing when you're in elementary school, where does that come from? Did your parents ever have to tell you?
Actually,
Yoobin, it's
they
time to
were
practice?
actually worried that I was like so serious about
Yeah.
something that early on. So no, it wasn't, I don't think, my parents' influence, but actually I had many friends at the time who were also interested in music, and we were all wanting to go to this specific and best like music middle school in Seoul, and we had to take an entrance audition when we were in 6th grade. So I think we just all went through it together, like practicing and inspiring each other.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a big trend in Korea at the time, in 90s, early 90s, like classical music boom. I guess like Sarah Chang was so big, and there was Yo-Yo Ma, like
Yeah.
Itzhak Perlman, all these famous like classical musicians. So yeah, it was a big trend for everyone to play classical music at the time, and with my friends' interest also, it just naturally happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's almost like your peers were really the
Yeah,
ones driving
I
you
think
in a
so.
way.
Yeah.
Did you notice a big difference then when you moved to the United States? You moved to Florida with your aunt and her family in the education system, going from all your peers being very musically oriented to
Yeah.
them being in like a public middle school.
It was, yeah, it was very different. And I think, well, that 1 year in Florida was also different than when I moved to New Jersey next
Sure.
year. Yeah, the New Jersey, and I also went to Juilliard pre-college. So that
Right.
was kind of like continuation of that like competitiveness and yeah, music-oriented, like work-oriented environment. But Florida, yeah, it was definitely a lot more relaxing environment. I remember just like hopping into a swimming pool right after coming back from school with my cousins and just eating oranges. So it was really, really great year, I have to say. And I felt comfortable like learning English there. So I think it was a great transition for me. And I remember the band teacher at the school was like blown away.
Right, I'm sure. Yeah.
So yeah, I got featured as a soloist playing like Carnival of the Animals with the band there, and I also had an experience going to play at the football field in the band.
Which is very different.
Yeah, it was really fun. I mean, very different, but yeah, fun experience for me. So yeah, I'm glad I got to do that.
You can tell Yoobin still has fun every day, playing the orchestral repertoire that really moves her as a musician. She balances out her demanding, albeit successful career with free time with friends and family, traveling, eating, and hanging out with her husband and dog. Because she honed her technique with such precision early on, Yoobin could shift her focus to finding expression and connecting to the score. For Yoobin, this happens both in and out of rehearsals. She's an alert and sensitive player, always prepared and ready to step in at a moment's notice for the principal flutist. She shared more about her job in our interview, and I learned about the specifics of her audition day. Everything from the music on her playlist to the stockpile of snacks she had at the ready to fuel her on her grueling day. You make the transition from Korea to the United States sound pretty seamless, especially since you moved with family and then you went to the East Coast. Was there ever a tempting moment, though, where I know you're very focused and very career-driven, but did you ever think, I just want to just stop and go back home and I miss my family? And is this all worth it?
Right. I think first few years after I moved to New Jersey and started Juilliard pre-college, like the academics got much harder suddenly. Maybe it was the school also. And yeah, it was a little more difficult. So I remember counting the days until the summer break so I can go home and visit my friends and family. And even though my parents were visiting frequently, still it's big change.
It's hard,
of
and
course.
you're young too. Yeah.
So I remember really counting the days, but then I don't know. After a few years, it started to shift. So more and more, I feel like I also belonged here as well as Korea, and then I would have to say maybe after my Curtis years, I really wanted to actually stay and live here and play in one of the great orchestras here. Yeah. Wanted to experience that.
And how did you know that orchestral playing was kind of a big dream of yours versus doing the solo career route?
I would have to thank Curtis Institute, actually. Yeah, when we were there, orchestra was such a priority of our education, and everyone was so involved and dedicated to orchestras. And I remember I showed up to a rehearsal, and first rehearsal at the school, and these kids, 16, 17-year-olds violinists who could be a famous soloist by themselves, they probably were already, and sitting at the back of the violin section looking at the score and really intently listening to the conductor and just giving everything all in. And you can only imagine the sound that it's made from these young passionate musicians. So there I really developed my love for orchestra playing. And for solo versus orchestra playing, sure, we do have some of the great repertoires in flute solo music, but it's not comparable to symphonic repertoire. I love playing Brahms, Schumann, Mendelssohn, Mahler, Bruckner, Strauss. I can just go on and on. So to play these symphonic repertoires, I think that's what really made me want to play in orchestras more. Yeah.
Because you do a lot of solo playing as well. You were talking about when you were going back to Korea a lot. Do you do a lot still, or is it kind of tapered off?
I mean, not as crazy as
when you started.
first few years. I don't think I can physically do that anymore as I'm getting older also. But it's a good balance now, I think. Yeah. A couple times a year I do solo performances, and also chamber music I love.
Yeah, do you feel like it gives brings freshness to your playing and kind of mixes it up a little bit?
Yeah, I can focus a little more on my own things, not just worrying about blending and,
Yes,
so
yeah.
it is different. And I think it's good to try to do everything basically and really put yourself out there. Yeah.
Speaking of blending, do you feel like you naturally blended in with the group since you were studying with Robert for a little while before winning the audition? Do you feel like it was just a really easy fit?
I think so. Yeah, I'd like to think at least that Robert and I share naturally similar style of playing, especially since I studied with him for 2 years before joining the orchestra. So yeah, thankfully I didn't feel like I had to adjust my playing so much from before.
Yeah.
And also it depends on how principal player wants the second player to sound. And Robert wants second player to be quite strong. So yeah, he has very naturally projecting sound, so he cannot be drowned anyway. So
that must be nice too, so that
I
you're
can
not feeling
really
like you're always being
play out also, and be supportive but also leading at the same time.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of important for second players. If you try to just follow all the time, you will be late. Like even if it's a like nanosecond, like if you're only following, so you definitely have to be supportive but also leading at the same time, so it's a fine balance.
It's a tricky balance. Yeah, it's hard to do. You were principal flute in New Haven, correct? Before the Phil. So what big differences have you noticed going from being a principal player to a second flutist? What are the pros and the cons?
Well, most of the second flute's parts are, of course, like supporting and harmonizing the first flute's melody. So you do have to be more sensitive about that. You don't want to overpower, and sometimes you do actually have to be more than other wind parts of the section. So you just have to be more alert and change the balance quickly, depending on what you play. But I mean, I don't think it was a big shift. I mean, even as a principal player, you still have to blend and play chamber music with other parts.
You can't always be the star all
also
the time.
Depending on the composer or specific piece, the role changes all the time.
Sure.
So I think no matter if you're playing principal or second or whichever part it is, you just have to be alert and sensitive.
So do you actually, it makes me a little curious, do you think then it is very appropriate at auditions? Because sometimes when you have a principal audition or you have a second flute audition, even on the second flute audition, you have a lot of principal rep that you have to prepare and play. So I would take it, you think it's very appropriate that you need to know how to master that repertoire and take on that role. If you.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah. I mean, even I had to play a lot of principal playing in the Philharmonic after joining, and that was not in the job description. But yeah, I mean, I did it, of course, enjoying it, and you just never know when you have to step in. Yeah. I had to step in for Robert's Bartok Concerto for Orchestra.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, with a day and a half notice. And so, things do happen. Right. And you just have to be ready for everything.
In addition to being really passionate about music, I have to admit I did a little Instagram stalking of you. No. And I noticed that you're very passionate about traveling, which you get to do a lot with the Phil, and with food and cultures and experiencing the world. Do you think that I would say you probably have put in your time now, like built up the hours of all of your practicing that you can enjoy things a little bit more now. But do you think that has enhanced your playing, being able to experience different things outside of a practice room?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, music is about expression, so technique is just one of the tools, I would say, to express yourself through music. So yes, of course, it's important to develop your techniques at the right time at right age and in a right way, but I think it's equally important to experience everything out there. Food, emotions, not just positive emotions, but like heartbreak, like losing somebody, everything. I think it adds to your depth of expression. So yes, just get yourself out there and experience everything, I would say.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about the audition and your audition day at the Phil. You talked about it being like one of the most arduous, grueling days you've been through, and you had lots of snacks prepared and you had a early morning and a late night. I'm curious what you kind of did in the in-betweens. Are you one of those people that you like to just stay quiet, not really talk to anybody, stay in the zone? Or do you like to take your mind off with watching a show or listening to music or reading a book?
Yeah, I think I passed most time by listening to music. I mean, what was on the audition
Oh,
list.
really? Listening to your audition?
Which was in my iPhone,
right? Your playlist
at
that you
the time.
Yeah.
Because we each got assigned a separate room, so we weren't really like chatting away, and I don't think I would have done that anyway, just to let myself focus more. But yeah, just be ready to stay inside the hall for a long time if you're taking an audition. I didn't expect that to happen, like being waiting for like 7 or 8 hours, but I'm glad. I had some emergency, like I don't remember, like banana or granola bar, like something to at least like sustain me through a few more hours. So yeah, I'm very thankful for that. And yeah, I think playing so much right before you go on stage is also dangerous. It's different for everyone.
Right.
But I didn't want to exhaust myself. I wanted to stay fresh when I went on stage. So yeah, I don't think play like so many hours, but just listen to the music and try to calm myself.
And how do you calm yourself or battle the nerves when it's such a long stretch? I feel like that is takes endurance on its own. It's easier to do that in tinier chunks to calm yourself, but
I think maybe some breathing exercises. And luckily I think I feel more calm actually when I'm on stage. I'm more nervous before, but when I'm on stage, I'm able to focus a little more. So that way I'm very lucky and I don't get too much like physical symptoms of nervousness. But I think generally like deep breathing exercise definitely helps.
Something else that I think a lot of people don't talk about is getting tenure, which is you got in 2015.
Yeah.
So it's really hard enough to get the job on audition day and then pass a trial and then get the offer. But then you have to get tenure. Did you feel when you finally got that like a sigh of relief? Were you a little bit on edge for the concerts and seasons before that?
Yes and no. I mean, I tried not to think about it every day. Otherwise, if I did that, I would have
crazy.
Yes, exactly. So I just tried to be a good colleague and, be the best musician I can until then. But I did feel a relief when I got my tenure, because you just never know. I guess all these different aspects can come into effect.
Sure.
So
what does that mean to you when you say be a good colleague?
Just do your part, basically. Prepare yourself and have a nice conversation with your colleagues and share your feelings during the rehearsal. So
I feel like it's a little bit of a balance too, though, because you want to interact and share how you're feeling, both just personally, like chit-chatting, and also about the music, kind of contribute your own thoughts, but you don't want to overstep either. So,
but that goes on for even after
tenure. That's true. Very good point.
I love playing in the orchestra because I'm a very social person in nature, and I love playing with all these different people, but it goes on for years and years. So you can imagine like playing with same people for that long of a time. So just know that.
You get to know each other very well,
yes,
I'm sure.
Yes,
Speaking of 2015 being, the year you got tenure, it's a big year for you. You also had a lot of your concerto performances then leading up to your wedding also. You got married to cellist and conductor Earl Lee. So it seems to all, you have it all. You're married, wonderful job, very happy. Do you think there are some struggles, though, to being married to a professional musician? It's hard to be in the same city, first of all. That's really tricky.
Right.
And then schedules and syncing up your lifestyles.
Right. I mean, I'm sure there are pros and cons of every
combination,
marriage or every relationships. But my husband now works for Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra as an associate conductor, and before that he was in Toronto Symphony Orchestra for 3.5 seasons. So yeah, we've only had long distance marriage.
Right.
Yeah, since we got married. So yes, it's definitely challenging in its own ways, but we try to think of it as a good thing. Like we can focus more on our work and ourselves when we're apart, and we
Sure.
cherish the time together more when we're together. And we also coordinate before the season starts. We go through our calendar together and try to alternate actually our weeks off throughout the season so we can maximize our time together, so that we don't go on like too long,
Right.
at least like 2 or 3 weeks, without seeing each other. So it's, yeah, we have to balance and sometimes like sacrifice things. Like sometimes I have to say no to other engagements because
Sure.
like I wouldn't see my husband for too long and things like that. But I think we're making it work well
I think that's-
so far.
yeah. I think that's good, healthy advice too, though, is that it's okay when you've gotten to a certain point to
Yeah.
have to juggle things or maybe turn some things down.
Yeah.
Because personal relationships are also important. Like
Right.
you were saying before, in making up who you are as a person and everything.
That's true.
It's important.
Yeah. You've got to prioritize
Exactly.
some things.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Can't always be career
Yeah, exactly.
first. You stayed very positive, very disciplined, very patient through your whole career, starting from a young age. You always had this goal in mind. Did you ever have moments of what if, it doesn't work out? What am I going to do? How am I going to support myself? It seems like it has seamlessly moved from school into career, and so things have landed pretty well. What would happen if you didn't get a job out, once you graduated from school? Or
I don't know. I guess I was very hopeful. I didn't really think about that. But I mean, I can tell you that this was not my first audition.
Right,
there are
right.
many. Yeah. So it is difficult to land a job, of course, in orchestras. But I don't know. I can't imagine doing something else than playing the flute. I don't think I can do anything else.
it's almost like you had blinders on, like you're just focused
I
on
was
one
very
thing and you're
focused,
going to get there no matter
yeah,
what.
I feel very lucky that it did work out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I'm curious what musicians throughout your career, throughout when you were training and practicing at a young age, who were some of your idols? What kind of sound were you striving after? And who's someone today, maybe someone up and coming or a peer today that you really admire?
Justin flutists or
No, anyone.
Actually,
Yeah.
I think when I was studying, I listened to all the instruments. Like I would go to like violin master classes or piano master classes and learn so much like of the musical things, and I would get coachings from other faculties when I was at school. So I
That's a
think
good
it's
idea.
I think it's important to, of course, flute playing and flute being, surrounded by flutists are also important, but other instruments, interacting with other instrumentalists and getting inspirations from them is equally important. But speaking of flutists these days, I was just mentioning to Phil, this guy from Munich, Paolo Tabiglione. I had the opportunity to play with him a few years back in Korea for Flute Festival, and I was really blown away by his playing, and I didn't know who he was until then, and I couldn't believe it. So
Yeah.
he's, I would say, my favorite flutist at the time. And another Korean guy who has same name as me, Yoobin Son. Do you know about him? He's young. He's maybe in his early 20s. I think he plays in orchestra in Berlin now, and
okay.
he won multiple. I think he won Prague. You might want to check on that.
I'll fact check you.
So I was also really impressed with his playing as well. So I mean, there are plenty of musicians that you can get inspirations from every different ages and countries and everywhere. So and also to see soloists who come to play with us, it's
Very true. Yeah, you have a lot of really spectacular people that you play with.
So it's very inspiring.
What's been like a highlight concert for you?
When we played Bruckner Ninth Symphony, Dudamel was supposed to conduct, but he had to cancel because of illness, and Manfred Honeck stepped in and did same repertoire, Bruckner Ninth, and it was so amazing. And I think it was also his personal connection to Bruckner, being Viennese and also sincere Catholic. So it just felt something really special. I think not just the program, but how you personally connect with the piece itself, it also makes a difference. And how conductors can make a big difference depending on repertoire. So that concert was one of the most memorable concerts. And also Shostakovich 11th Symphony with Bitchkov. And also I always enjoy working with Esa-Pekka Salonen. I think he also brings very special concerts every time he's here. One I can remember right now is Firebird Suite, entire Firebird ballet suite. That was amazing. And also Yurovsky with Daphnis and Chloe. And when we played Stravinsky, Rite of Spring with Yap, our music director, and we went on tour with that was also really special.
Do you have any advice for the newest member that just joined, Alison Fierce? We just spoke with her last week. Any words of wisdom? Because it wasn't that long ago that you were the newest member and kind of coming into the ranks.
Well, it was long ago, but 8 years ago. She's doing very well. And she's probably one of the youngest members of the orchestra, but time will fly. Just enjoy this time, I would say. And playing everything for the first time, that is a very special feeling. So
that's true.
Don't forget those days, I would say.
That's all the time that we have for today. Thanks so much, Yoobin, for coming in, and it's been great getting to know you.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
We hope Yoobin certainly continues to savor each moment with the orchestra as she plays through some of her favorite repertoire and performs alongside her colleagues. Keep an eye out for her at the Phil, where you can hear her immaculate flute playing. Thank you, Yoobin Son. Pieces on this episode feature Carnival of the Animals, the Mozart Flute Concerto in G major, and the Reinecke Flute Concerto. This has been an episode of Flute Unscripted. This podcast is sponsored by the Flute Center of New York. Visit our website at flutesforsale.com for the largest selection of new and pre-owned instruments. Remember to use this podcast promo code LISTEN for discounts on flutes and sheet music. Special thanks to our owner Phil Unger, the Flute Center team, and Stefan Haskoldsen for our theme music.